My name is Michael Reed, and for many years that name was associated with fear, danger, and chaos. I became a ghost registered in police systems, a shadow that traversed cities without leaving a trace, except for the silence of the people I forced to be quiet. When someone saw my photograph plastered on a lamppost with the warning, "Wanted, armed and dangerous," they couldn't imagine that behind that cold gaze was someone who had long since forgotten the meaning of the word humanity. I used to believe that I was born to command, that I was called to be feared, and that the world was divided between predators and prey. I chose to be the predator not because I needed to, but because I felt pleasure in wielding power, in dominating, in making people bow before me. For me, evil was not a limit, it was a tool. I grew up hearing that the world belongs to the strong, and that compassion is a weakness that destroys those who try to survive. This idea became like a hot iron branding my mind. When I realized that people trembled at the sound of my name, that they looked away when I passed by, I confused fear with respect. I thought I was in control, when in reality it was fear that controlled me from within. It wasn't the fear of others. It was my own fear of being seen as someone ordinary, weak, vulnerable. I learned to hide my pain behind a mask of violence. With each crime, I ceased to be a man and became an empty shell, guided by dark impulses that I believed to be my identity. I'm proud to admit that back then I felt nothing. No remorse, no guilt, no weight on the choices that destroyed homes, stole lives, and left irreversible scars on those who crossed my path. Nothing mattered. The feeling of power nullified any conscience. I woke up every day believing I would never be caught, and that even if I were, nothing could stop me. Not the police, not the law, not death. I feared nothing. I believed I was the master of my life and my story, until the day death took control of everything from me. And for the first time I understood that there is a place where no lie can stand, no power can protect you, and no darkness can hide you. And it was on that very day, when my heart stopped, that I realized I was never the predator. I was the prey, and someone much bigger than me had been watching me the whole time. When you live believing you control the darkness, you don't realize it's already controlling you. If this has made you think even a little, don't leave the video. Subscribe and leave a like, because what comes next isn't a story. It's a warning for those who still believe they have everything under control. When I say the street was my throne, it's not a metaphor. The nights of New Jersey were my territory, and the feeling I carried within me was the same as a king who believes he rules worlds that will never be taken from his hands. I walked through alleys lit by dim lamps and shop windows reflecting the rain, and each step was as if I were traversing a universe that belonged to me. Money arrived as quickly as cocaine in the hands of buyers, and I convinced myself that this constant flow of power meant purpose. For me, weapons were not just tools of violence, they were extensions of my own will. The cold metal on my waist reminded me that the world obeyed whoever had the courage to point first. I circulated between Chicago, Atlanta, and Newark. I was always surrounded by people who feigned loyalty, but were actually only there because they feared what I might do if they left. Even so, I confused being surrounded with being loved. I confused silence with respect. I confused submission with honor. Crime gave me the illusion of freedom, and the fear I inspired was the fuel that propelled me further and deeper into the darkness I unknowingly nurtured. When I entered a crowded club, the lights swirling and the sound drowning out any vestige of consciousness, I believed I was invincible. Bottles of vodka shattered on the table as women tried to get my attention, and I looked at it all with the expression of someone who had already won the game. But that wasn't victory. It was anesthesia. I used to think adrenaline was life, but today I understand it was escape. Every $100 bill that passed through my hand carried the mark of someone who suffered, so that I could pay for my nights of arrogance. Even so, I pushed the guilt away, saying that life was a war and that if I didn't do it, someone else would do it in my place. This rationalization allowed me to ignore the growing emptiness that began to emerge when the music ended and silence found me again. I believed I was building an empire, when in reality I was digging my own grave. And when the silence began to confront me, I would rush into another night of crime, another transaction, another destroyed life, all to avoid facing the fact that the only thing I truly controlled was my own collapse. Have you ever confused power with purpose? Comment below. I don't want to confuse feeling strong with being on the right path. The first time I crossed the line between threat and destruction didn't begin with an elaborate plan, but with something much smaller, almost insignificant in the eyes of an outsider. It was just a small shop in Camden, New Jersey. It was a neighborhood store where a gray-haired gentleman closed the cash register every day at the same time. Another young man and I watched for 2 days, noting details, clocks, times, movements. For me, it was an opportunity, a test to prove that I wasn't afraid to get my hands dirty. I believed that life only gave space to those who took what they wanted, so I decided to take it. When I pushed open the glass door, the little bell that signaled the entrance for customers seemed to mock me. The man raised his face, and upon noticing the gun under his jacket, his eyes filled with such profound fear that for a moment I felt the hesitation pierce me with the force of a silent blow. That reaction should have awakened humanity in me, but something inside me moved in a dark way, as if a part of my soul had shut down in that fraction of a second. I pointed the gun and demanded the money. He trembled, pleaded, said he had a family, that he had grandchildren. I didn't want to hear stories. I just wanted the money and the feeling of control. When he hesitated, trying to buy time, I pulled the trigger. The sound wasn't like in the movies. It was dry, heavy, painfully real. I can still hear it to this day. The man fell between the shelves of canned food, and as his body lost its life, I felt something different happening inside me. It wasn't guilt. It wasn't regret. It was a feeling of power, as if I had discovered a door I could never close again. That was the first time I saw death so close, and instead of turning away from its path, I embraced it. I left that store believing I had won, but the truth is that at that exact moment, I lost the most important battle, the battle for my soul. After that day, I no longer needed courage to do evil, because I no longer felt anything. After that first shot, something inside me changed irreversibly. It wasn't just the inner silence. It was as if my senses had been reprogrammed to ignore any trace of humanity. The pain of others became background noise, a distant sound I could no longer interpret. I began to walk the streets like someone who no longer needed to justify themselves. Evil ceased to be a boundary and became routine. And each time I crossed another line, the weight that should have brought me down simply vanished. I told myself that the world was like that it was kill or be killed, hurt or be hurt. And this lie, repeated so many times, became armor that shielded me from any feeling that could make me stop. The calls started becoming frequent, mothers pleading, wives crying, family members asking for a few minutes to gather money, begging me not to hurt someone they loved. I held the phone, while the voice on the other end trembled, and instead of feeling empathy, I felt a strange sense of superiority, as if those tears were proof that I was invincible. The pain of others became fuel for my own sense of power. I no longer needed to threaten. Silence was enough. They knew what I was capable of. The truth is that crime doesn't just destroy the victims, it also destroys the perpetrator. Every life I crushed, every tear I caused, created invisible layers of darkness within me. The coldness wasn't born ready-made. It was constructed, and I became the architect of my own ruin. When I crushed compassion, something inside me died a little more. At a certain point, I no longer felt adrenaline, only emptiness. Violence ceased to be stimulating and became mechanical, automatic, like breathing. I didn't realize it, but I was losing my soul with the same ease with which others waste time. And the less I felt, the deeper I sank into darkness. I thought I was in control of my life. Until the day I heard the sound that would change everything, the gunshot that stopped my heart. It was on a rainy night, near Memphis. That's when everything started to fall apart. I was in the back seat of a stolen car, the windows fogged up, and the smell of gasoline thick in the air. Wet asphalt, sirens blaring in the distance, tires screeching down the road with an almost hypnotic sound. The driver, a younger man, trembled at the wheel, while I kept the gun pressed against my leg, like someone caressing an old acquaintance. I believed that night would be just another escape, another chapter in the story of the untouchable predator I had become. I had no idea it would be my last chapter as a living man. Suddenly, red and blue lights appeared behind us like ghosts emerging from nowhere, reflecting in the raindrops that trickled down the rear window. The adrenaline surged back, as if evil were pulling at my throat and telling me that this was freedom. I yelled at the driver to accelerate, while helicopters crisscrossed the sky and police cars blocked every possible exit. The car skidded around a curve, the steering wheel spun, and I felt the world spin with it. In that moment, for a fraction of a second, I felt like I was outside of reality, as if I were watching my own life from a distant place. When the car hit the guardrail, I was thrown forward. Everything around me slowed down. The sirens seemed to recede into the distance, as if being sucked into a tunnel. The world lost its sound. Time lost its order. And in the midst of this silence that tore at my senses, I heard only a single gunshot. A dry, cold sound that ripped through the air like something specifically aimed at me. I felt the impact in my chest, a force so violent it took the air from my lungs and ripped my soul from my body. I fell to the ground, my eyes still open, trying to absorb the scene before me. Blood seeped between my fingers, hot and persistent, running down the asphalt like a dark river. The rain mixed with the blood, creating a puddle that reflected the lights of the police cars. I could smell the wet earth, the metal, the despair. In distant voices, the police shouted orders, but everything seemed to come from far away, as if I were listening to the world through a thick wall. The most disturbing sensation wasn't the pain. It was the moment I realized I could no longer feel my own body. There was no weight, no limit, no flesh. There was only awareness. And at that moment when I thought I had died, I discovered something much worse. I was dead, but I wasn't switched off. I could see my body lying on the ground, while I remained standing, trapped in a place where time obeys no one. The first thing I noticed was the silence. Not ordinary silence, but a silence that seemed to swallow the sound of the world, as if the universe had been switched off. I was lying on the ground, still feeling the rain on my face. But when I blinked, something didn't make sense. The rain continued to fall on my body, but I no longer felt cold. I didn't feel pain. I didn't feel the weight of my own body. I suddenly sat up, as if my body had reacted on its own. But when I looked down, I realized something that no human being is emotionally prepared to face. I was standing, observing my body lying on the asphalt. Paramedics rushed, police officers shouted, resuscitation measures were initiated. I saw hands pressing on my chest, and although I was close enough to hear every command, it all seemed to happen behind thick glass. I tried to touch a police officer's shoulder, tried to grab the rescuer's arms, but my hands passed through everything as if I were made of air. I screamed desperately, trying to regain the control I had been so proud of having in life, but no sound came out. I had lost my voice, lost my weight, lost my body. The only thing that remained was consciousness. I was overcome by a feeling of terror, not the physical terror of being about to die, but the absolute terror of existing without control, without direction, without solid ground. I felt a coldness that didn't come from the wind or the rain, but from within me. It was as if the absence of flesh revealed the truth I had tried to hide from myself my whole life. I had no control over anything. I spent years believing I held the world in my hands, but at that moment I couldn't even hold myself. The scene before me seemed impossible. A motionless body, surrounded by strangers trying to save it, while I, separated from it, desperately tried to return. I tried to go back in, like someone trying to put on clothes that are too tight, but something prevented me. It was as if an invisible barrier told me that the door had already been closed. Anguish grew inside me, an anguish so intense that it seemed to become a weight, even without a body to bear it. I found myself being pulled back, not physically, but as if reality itself were distancing me from the scene. The road, the lights, the people, began to fade into the distance, as if being swallowed by a dark and silent space. And at that moment, when the last drop of rain fell on my body and disappeared from my sight, I understood that I was being taken to a place where sound and light have no authority. And it was precisely there, on the threshold between what I knew and what I never imagined existed, that something, or someone, finally revealed itself. When I was ripped from that scene on the road, I felt no movement, no speed, no displacement as we know it in the physical world. It was as if the very space surrounding me had been torn from the inside out, and without realizing it, I was sucked into another reality where nothing obeyed the rules of the world. The light disappeared and gave way to something that wasn't simple darkness, but a conscious, silent, and profound presence that seemed to observe every thought I tried to hide. That darkness wasn't the absence of light. It was the presence of truth. I felt that that place could see inside me, and the terror that this provoked was greater than any weapon pointed at me throughout my life of crime. Then, gradually, a clarity began to emerge. It wasn't a blinding light. It was a revealing light. It didn't illuminate the surroundings. It permeated everything, including my soul, and that made me realize that nothing could be hidden there. When the light took shape, I saw him. There was no announcement, no voice identifying who he was. His mere presence made everything within me understand. I was before Jesus. He didn't walk towards me. He didn't physically approach. He simply existed there, as if he had been in that place since before time. When his gaze met mine, I felt that all the stories I had invented, all the masks I had worn, all the justifications I had constructed to protect myself, vanished. I was exposed in a way I never imagined possible. I thought he would list my crimes, that he would accuse me, that he would point out each life destroyed by my choices. But he said nothing. His gaze was the very truth, and in that instant I saw everything. The fallen merchant, the mother begging for mercy, the tears I had caused, the despair I had generated, the blood that was on my hands, not symbolically, but as if it were flowing before me. The shame I felt wasn't human. It was existential. I didn't need Jesus to judge me. I was already condemned by the truth I finally saw in myself, when I thought I couldn't bear it anymore. He looked away, and something began to be revealed. I understood that I was about to see what I had always run away from facing. When Jesus turned his gaze to the space that opened before me, I felt as if an invisible force was pulling me into something that wasn't a physical place, but an absolute state of truth. The light that had previously enveloped me began to recede, not abruptly, but like someone slowly closing a door so that I could understand what it means to be without it. The more the light diminished, the more awareness increased. It was at that moment that I discovered that the worst sensation one can experience in eternity is not pain, fire, or physical torment, but the complete absence of God's presence. It's like being ripped away from the only source of everything that is safe, true, and alive. The darkness that took over wasn't just darkness, it was a consciousness. It was like entering an echo of myself, where every thought, every memory, every crime returned. with an unbearable clarity. I didn't see flames. There were no demons dragging chains, and no one was shouting my name. But I heard something infinitely worse. Every tear I caused had a voice. I could hear the cries of people begging for their lives, the weeping of the children I left fatherless, the despair of the mothers who pleaded with me not to pull the trigger. A pain I had previously ignored now became a weight, crushing me from the inside, as if I were being forced to simultaneously feel everything I had destroyed. I tried not to listen. I tried to cover my ears, but there was no body, no hands to block the sound, no way to stop what I myself had created. It was like being swallowed by an eternity of consequences. I always believed that hell was a place where God sent bad people, but at that moment, I understood the truth with overwhelming clarity. It is not God who sends anyone there. It is each person who walks towards that destination by their own decision. Hell was not a punishment imposed from the outside. It was the inevitable harvest of everything I had sown over the years. Darkness enveloped me completely, and the more I tried to escape, the deeper I sank. I felt as if I were falling into myself, plummeting into a bottomless abyss where the only thing that existed was the awareness of what I had become. There was no room for excuses, no space for justifications. I was alone with my truth, and it was unbearable. For the first time in my entire existence, I felt the weight of what it means to be completely separated from God. And it was precisely in this endless agony that something happened. It wasn't light, it wasn't sound, it wasn't touch. It was a memory from when I was about 8 or 9 years old, sitting next to my grandmother on a church pew, listening to someone say that Jesus still gave second chances. That memory surfaced like a spark in the emptiness. I wasn't praying, I wasn't asking for forgiveness. I just thought of him. And in that thought, something changed. The darkness didn't disappear, but for a second I could feel as if the fall had stopped. As if, even in the deepest darkness, there was still the possibility of returning. The memory of that simple church, the smell of old wood mixed with the soft perfume my grandmother wore on Sundays, surfaced in the darkness like a solitary flame trembling in a violent wind. I wasn't praying when it happened, but it felt like the memory was praying for me. I didn't say forgiveness, but something inside me was pleading for mercy. And it was in that silent movement of the soul that I felt as if something had pulled me back, not violently, but firmly. It was as if an invisible hand was saying that there was still a choice, even after everything I had done. When I opened my eyes again, I was no longer in darkness. I was in a hospital, with tubes going through my nose and a machine recording my irregular heartbeat. The bright white light from the ceiling blinded me, and the smell of disinfectant mixed with the metallic odor of blood made me realize I was back in the physical world. My hands were handcuffed to the bed. There were 2 police officers at the door, watching my every move, ready to take me straight to prison as soon as I was able to get out of that bed. But at that moment, being arrested was the least of my fears. I didn't cry because I was alive. I cried because I understood that despite everything, I had been reached by God's mercy. I didn't deserve a second chance. There was nothing in me that justified compassion. I destroyed lives, dishonored families, abandoned any crumb of goodness that might have once existed within me. Even so, he gave me back my life. From that moment on, I no longer wanted to run away, lie, or manipulate. I asked to speak with a prison chaplain and told him everything I had done. All the names, all the places, all the people. I vowed that I would spend the rest of my life telling the truth I discovered in hell. You can't win by running from God. You only win if you stop running. Today, when I look back and see the man I was, I still feel a tightness in my chest that reminds me that some choices leave scars that life cannot erase. I carry with me the certainty that God allowed me to return, not to ease my conscience, but to grant me the opportunity to prevent others from walking towards the same destiny. I returned with a clear memory of the darkness I experienced, And with the recollection of the moment, I realized with absolute clarity that hell is not a metaphor, but the final consequence of a life led by arrogance, lack of love, and the continuous refusal to look inward and acknowledge the need for change. There is no negotiation with eternity. There is no argument against the truth. There is no mask before Jesus. If there's one thing I've learned, it's that God doesn't force anyone to do anything. He doesn't drag people into the light, He simply offers it. The choice is ours. Hell isn't a punishment God imposes. It's the destiny we choose when we insist on living far from Him. I was an expert at constructing justifications for everything I did, but before Jesus, no argument held up. When His gaze met mine, I realized that every choice I made was written on my own soul. He didn't open His mouth to condemn me because I was already condemned. The condemnation didn't come from Him, it came from me. And that's why today I say, no one deceives God. If you are hearing my voice now, while watching this video, perhaps there is a battle raging within you. Perhaps you are running away, trying to hide behind what you show to the world, believing you have enough time to decide later. But the truth is, there is no guarantee of later. Eternity doesn't wait, it just happens. If you feel something touching your heart right now, that's not emotion, it's God calling you by name. If this story resonated with you, don't ignore it. Leave your comments below. I choose the light. And subscribe to the channel because here you will find messages that can change destinies before time runs out.